Welcome to another episode of Commercial Property Roadshow. You're here with Helen Tarrant, and today I'm actually going to cover for you the value of your money and why you should be investing in commercial property or like assets and how you value that and what exactly is your cash on cash returns and what you should be looking at when you are actually comparing commercial deals with something else. And the reason I want to talk about that is so few people realize the value of their money. And those people who do just buy any kind of de-risk assets. So they don't quite work that way. So the reason that I say this is because you got to look at where your deposit's coming from and whether you should be paying down principal. A lot of people think that they should be paying down principal because they're trying to de-risk their assets, and they think that if they pay down in principal, it will work out to be better in the future because they get more cash flow. But the thing is, when you get more cash flow, you end up paying more tax on it, and it may not work out to be the best way. So let's work out the value of your money. So at the moment, a commercial property loan is about 2.5%, and that is for a lease stock loan, which is the highest risk in the market. Is based on the tenant alone and on the lease, and not looking at you for servicing. Now, if you're doing full doc loans and everything else, and all you're doing where you're looking at the servicing, the rate's going to be lower. So the highest rate in the market for commercial property at the moment for a lease stock loan on a normal asset, so I'm not talking about specialized asset, on a normal asset, is 2.5%. So that is actually the value of your money. So when you are lending it to yourself, so you're using the deposit, you should be valuing that money at 2.5%. And then when you compare that to other assets in the market, you got to look at, are you going to get more in terms of return on that, more than the 2.5%? So the way to look at that is how much you might be using. Let's say we're buying $1 million property for round figures, right? A lease stock loan is 35% plus 35% cost, and then what you have is, so you need about 40%. So let's say you're buying $1 million property, you're putting in $400,000 including stamp duty and everything else, and the bank is lending you 65%, so $650,000. Now your $400,000, what is the cost on that? So basically 2.5% of that should be calculated. So say on $100,000, that's $2,500. So really it's about $10,000. So the value of that is $10,000, and really when you're looking at $1 million, if you like that 2.5% across the whole purchase price, it really works out to be about $25,000. Add about $50,000 more for your stamp duties and costs, you're probably about 27.5 or somewhere like that. So that is how much it costs you to service a loan at $1 million. That is your deposit plus your commercial loan. Now, if you're putting that same $400,000 into a different property, let's say into a residential, or you're putting it into a business investment, you got to see what else more do you generate from that $400,000. So if we do a 6% return on your money in the commercial property space, you are literally across that $1 million getting $60,000. You're taking away, say, 27.5, so you're sitting somewhere around $32,500 per year. Now you typically divide that by the $400,000 you put into it, so that's a leveraged cash on cash return of your investments, and that works around to be around probably close to about 9%, a bit shy of 9% cash on cash return. Now, of course, in the back end, you've got to realize that what do you get in growth? So for a property like that, you potentially get 3% to 4% in growth a year. So if you add into that to your return on your investment, you're finding that yes, you are getting a 6% up front, and then you're getting a 3 to 4% growth in the back end of that. So you're actually literally clearing for this property somewhere around potentially somewhere anywhere from 8% to 10% in total return from the property, not return when people talk about yield returns. It's actually total return on the property. So that's just something for you to be aware of. But if you're putting that same money into a business, let's say you're putting that same money into a business, then you got to look at, okay, what is the business going to generate for you? Is it going to generate more than $32,500? So more than 32.5 per year. And if it does, if it gives you $50,000 after all costs have come out, then that business opportunity for you is going to give you 11 or 12% return. The same thing when you look at residential, is that your residential, whether you are going to get that same return. Now, if your cash flow return is not that, if you're going to residential and is negative, you can only look at the back end. There is literally no cash and cash return. You have to look at the back end, and you have to go back to the equation looking at ROI, so it's in return on investment as a total whole, where you take into account the cash flow as well as the growth on it. And this is the reason why people invest in commercial property, is because they get so much more leveraged return on your cash. So this also comes back to the question, should you be paying down principal? And the simple answer is no, not right now in this market, because if you pay down principal, the value of your money is only worth 2.5%. But if you didn't pay principal and you leverage the money, your money, it's actually worth more like close to 4 to 6%, which incidentally means that you are actually going to get more out of your money and then you would if you were paying down, if you're paying down principal. Now, this will change as interest rates go up. So as interest rates go up and they go up to, 3, 4, or 5%, it makes more sense to pay down more principal, because now money isn't cheap anymore, and that it actually is more value to you to have that security of having that debt paid down, and that you're actually going to get 5% by paying down that principal, when at the moment you're only getting 2.5%. So if you balance that out, you will realize that right now, the best way to invest your money is to leverage to the best of your ability. And because commercial property doesn't require you to service, and they have this thing called lease stock loan, is the best way is to leverage that into an asset that is a good performing asset that you can make it better. Not a totally de-risked asset, but a good asset that you can make better, because it's all about making your money work hard for you and not the other way around. So you shouldn't be supporting your investment should be supporting you. And if you want that to happen, then the best way to make that happen is to actually buy an asset that in the process of you owning it, you are going to make it not from good to great. And that is about finding the key assets that is going to have not only growth potential, but maybe some potential upsides in terms of rent and changing tenants in the back end. But the fact that to really make your money grow to the maximum, you need to have the rental that is right to the market, some rental increases, plus on top of that, I would suggest that you have a property position in an area that's likely to grow, not the hot area at the moment. You definitely don't want to be in the hot area at the moment. You want to look at the next flow on area that is going to boom, and that means you get an exponential kick in your growth, which means you get additional ROI, and then add that in to what you can extend or change to the property in the long term. And I'm not saying in the next 3 to 5 years, but after 5 years, then you would have a property that is going to give you that kind of return. So the classic example is one of my clients at the moment have a property, and he's had this property for about 4 years now, and he's owned it in regional Queensland. And when he bought it, he had a tenant in there that was paying market rent. The tenant's come to him and asked for an extension. Now the extension is going to cost about 200 grand, but as a result of that extension, the tenant is going to sign up a longer lease. So we've gone back to them to negotiate a longer lease and a slight increase in rent. So we're not breaking up the 200k into and getting the tenant to pay that all back. We're breaking up that 200k and say potentially the tenant could pay back 100k of the 200k in the next 5 to 7 years while they hold that lease. So they're only having a $10,000 to $12,000 increase on their rent, which is equitable for the tenant, equitable for you, so you're contributing to it. But what that adds to, and because this property is in regional Queensland and regional Queensland is just having a boom, it's added an additional kicker to the property. So it's actually additionally added, by the time we increase that rent, we would have added probably an extra $300,000 to $400,000 growth on that property. So in the 4 years he's had it, he's not only had positive cash flow, but now he's obviously need to put $200,000 extra in. So his 1.2 has become a 1.4 mil investment, but now at the end of it, with the increase in rent, the property will be worth 600,000 more. So it'd be worth almost $2 million. So again, that means that he's actually got an exponential growth on the back end. If you look at 600,000 divided over the 1.4 he's paid, that's like a 60 to 70% growth in the last 4 years. Plus he's got positive cash flow each year of over $50,000 on this property, because he bought in a time where the area was yielding 8 to 9%. Of course, the area has changed now. They're no longer yielding 8 to 9%, but it doesn't stop you from still finding those key areas out there. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to partner with you to show you how you can make your money work better for you, how you can work out the exact returns of this property deal compared to the other property deal. And when you look at a range of options, what is the right property to get into? And there is a science behind it, there is a formula behind it, and because we've been doing it a long time, we can understand your circumstances and how we can partner with you to really build that long-term portfolio. So if you're looking for guidance, you're looking for someone to help you in your commercial property journey, reach out to us, helentarrant.com or helen@commercialpropertycashflow.com.au. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.